Hey everybody, I'm Zee Garcia.
I'm Mila Cleghorn.
Today we're going to be doing a review of On Tour Paris and New York. This is a follow-up to On Tour, which is a flip and right style game in which you are trying to take your band across the US in the original and connect the numbers sequentially, always moving up. Well, this game is based on that same premise, except you get two maps in here, boards that are double-sided, cards for each of those, and the idea is largely the same, with a couple of twists for each of these two maps. So, before we get into some final thoughts, or our thoughts on the game itself, let me go ahead and show you on the table what they look like, kind of how they work, and we're going to be right back. The game comes with two different maps you can play on. Here we have the New York side, but you can flip this over, and then you've got the Paris side over here with a slightly different game, different rules, and its own deck of cards. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the New York side, and I'll briefly mention at the end some of the differences on that Paris side. So here's the way it works. To play on the New York side, there is no setting up we need to do. Everybody just gets one of these. Shuffle deck, the dice, everybody has a marker. And then every round, we're going to flip over 3 of these cards, and we are going to roll the dice. Those dice are going to give you a 2-digit number that once you switch them, will give you another 2-digit number. So the number I have rolled, or the numbers I have rolled, are 18 and 81. What I am trying to do is have the longest continuous path through the different boroughs here in New York City. And I am going to write an 18 and an 81 in 2 different places right now. Those places are denoted by the cards that just got flipped up. So I can use this card to write one of them in Brooklyn. I could use this card to write one in the Bronx or Queens, and this one just the Bronx. Once I use one of these, say I write 18 somewhere here in Brooklyn, I can't use this one anymore for the other number. So it has to be across 2 different cards. So, for example, let's say I do 18, and I'm going to do it red hook right here, 18. Now, this is the card I'm using, and as you can see, there's a symbol in it for that saxophone. So I'm going to draw next to the number the shape here, this little diamond, to let me know that if at the end of the game my little tour indeed does go through red hook there, I should mark off one of these spaces that represents that symbol, okay? And I'm going to be scoring victory points from that as well. Now I need to put in my 81. This card no longer counts for me, so I have to use one of the other ones. And maybe I'll do it up here somewhere in Pelham. Okay, so 81. And I could use this one or this one for that. I'm going to go ahead and I'll do the diamond again. So I'll do it there. Put another one of those diamonds there. And that's it. Once everyone is done doing that, these cards will be discarded. We will reveal 3 new ones. The next player will roll the dice. Doesn't really matter who rolls the dice, but you can pass these around. And now we're going to have 63 and 36 and new locations here. So there you go. That's the general idea. As you can tell, and as you probably know, these different boroughs are not connected, except these 2, they are connected. But the other ones, you need ferries to get there. And there are 2 ways in which you can connect these ferries. Either the cards you got flipped over all show the same borough. In this case, you don't quite have it. But, if this also showed, say, Manhattan, then they're all 3 Manhattan. And at that point, you could, instead of writing any numbers, just draw a line from Manhattan, in this case, to any of the other ones. As long as they're not landlocked locations. These here in the middle that are white are landlocked. The other option is just getting a ferry card. Some of these cards will just say ferry on them. And if one of those came up this round, you could, again, instead of writing numbers, just connect a ferry from one place to another. Doesn't matter, all right? I'm going to go ahead and show you a board that I finished here and my finalized score. So I'll take you through it. So once all the places are filled in for any one person, technically once they're down to 2 or 1 place, there's a final round. And then everyone is done. And then you make your longest connection. So here I've got from over here in Harlem, I went up. There's a star there, which you get when you roll doubles. If you roll doubles, you instead just put a star somewhere, which is a wild. So I went there to 6 over here, took all that path there. You see my connection. And then I went from there, ferry all the way here. And then from there, I continued going this way. The same number next to each other is also okay. Another Y out there. I cut across, went down here, and then I went down and finished it at that 98 there. Couldn't go down here anymore. So that was it. So I went through 24 places, okay? My soloist score is from the different places I visited. I mark them off, and then at the end, as I make that path, I score the highest in each. 7, 11, 7, and 1 point. So I added that up. I visited all 5 boroughs, so you get a bonus 7 points for that, which you don't have to remember because it's written right there. Okay, so I got that. And then my final score was 57, as you can see. So that's the way the New York side works. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other side, the Paris side, all right? So flipping this over here, we've got the Paris side there, and Paris is going to have its own deck of cards, as I explained. It's a similar idea. There's a little more setting up in this side, where you roll the dice before the game begins proper, and you seed some numbers out there. But then, same thing, you're going to reveal 3 cards, you will roll the dice, and you are going to use that combination, 36 and 63 in this case, with 2 of these cards that were flipped over. The difference is the map is broken up differently. You've got the upper and lower areas here, as well as a central, an eastern, and a western area. So 6 groupings is the idea. This one, for example, shows you all of this. This one, everything above the river, and so on. So there's also these locations highlighted there, and if I end up putting a number there, say, for example, I want to use 63, I'm going to use this east card, and I'm going to write it into one of the ones that has that 20, then I could put the 63 right there. If I'm using one of these, I'll circle that, and that's going to score bonus points. So I'm going to not just get points for the visited jazz clubs, but also the circles. So going here will give me 2 points, much like the original On Tour. Other than that, again, you're doing trying to connect everything. You'll see here some ferries along the river, and those you can freely go from one ferry to another ferry, and you're going to get points for how far down the river you travel. Say if I go from A, I go all the way here to E, and I continue this way, then I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4 points for doing that. And now you would write that down over here in the riverboat total. So there you go. That's more or less what is going on the Paris side, and that gives you a look at both sides included in On Tour, Paris, and New York. All right, so On Tour is a game that I've really liked in the past. It's been in my top 100 in the past, in fact. It's one I've cooled on a little bit, but it was always a roll and write or flip and write, I guess, that I thought was clever, if hard to see sometimes. But it's very enjoyable. You've played it as well, but it wasn't one that was necessarily like blowing your world up, right?
Right, yeah, I played. I really like roll and write, flip and writes in general, and this is one that I played and I thought it felt comfortable in that genre. You know, yeah, definitely did not blow me away or bring anything new, I thought, at the table, but I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I was very surprised to see that a follow-up to that was neither alternate maps that were just an expansion, you know, nor a standalone game with a single map. I think this is very surprising. The fact that the follow-up has 2 games, like 2 different games in it, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think not only is it the 2 games, and it is giving you that feel of like you're getting 2 in 1, they feel different, I thought. The 2 different maps are very different. It's not just like, oh, here's an alternate layout that you can explore. No, they have their own set of rules, their own rule books here that you do need to go through just at first glance. When you look at it, it's not like, all right, I see what's going on, let's jump in.
Right.
No, you do need to go through, and they play different, they feel different, and I think you have to strategize differently in them as well.
Yeah. I mean, the core is the same idea, you know, the connecting things, but there's all these logistical loops you have to kind of jump through. And at first, I thought, upon reading, I started with New York. When I first read that one, I thought, this is going to be a mess. This is going to be a whole thing. Jumping from, one place to another on a different island, different barrel here, and trying to connect all this. This is going to get messy very quickly. And that turned out to not be true. I found that it was easy for me to comprehend that, to grasp it. Again, I think knowing on tour helped a little bit, probably both of us.
Yeah, I think so.
And obviously it's a little more lifting if you go from never having played that at all to having to understand the numerical sequencing here. Plus, you have to connect islands, or you have to cross the river in Paris, from one to another, and then count how far away it is, all of that stuff. But I think flip and right and roll and rights in general are such an explored genre at this point that this is not that complicated.
Right. I think if you played one before, you can jump in.
Yeah.
If you haven't played regular on tour, you can jump into these.
Yeah.
Maybe if you haven't played a roll and write before, you'd want to start something like regular on tour or welcome to, something like that. But if you have experience in roll and rights, you can definitely jump into these. Need to read the rules, which I think is a positive thing, again, that you can't just... Being such a very explored mechanism, I guess, or game type here, it's refreshing that you can't just open it up and be like, all right, I see what's going on, here we go. You know what I mean? It does still have some fresh things in it, I think. Specifically the New York one with the open decision of where you're going to build those or take those ferries from and to.
Yeah.
It really kind of opens it up.
It's super open-ended, yeah.
Which this feels like such a tight game, and that's how you described the first one, the really thinky, that first on tour. New York feels very open. You have these limitations, but it feels more like creative limitations, if that makes sense. It's like, hey, these are the limitations, but use your imagination and you can make it work. So you really can connect things, and it leaves it very malleable, I guess, as you're going through. You can really switch off. Okay, that roll hasn't come up. Hold on, let me switch gears. Okay, I can make this work.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the U.S. one, the original one, and to a certain degree in the Paris one, you definitely find yourself in those moments where you go, if I put a number here that isn't exactly in sequence, I cut out this whole chunk.
Yes.
Like, I will not visit any of this entire, piece of the map. New York feels not as punishing with that. Yeah. There was definitely, a time where I was able to go, I'm jumping down to Staten Island to hit one place and I'm leaving right from it again. Boom, there.
Right.
It's weirdly open-ended, and it seems like it would be scary and just sort of too freeing, but it works out really well, I thought. The limitations on when you can draw a ferry line are there. It's limiting enough where you shouldn't be wasteful with them. But, you can also draw one and maybe not need it, not use it, and not feel like, I ruined my game.
Right.
So,
I agree.
I like both of these, and I'm not sure. I keep kind of going back and forth on... Would I recommend to someone, this existing now, that they go back and get on tour first? The value here is just better. You're getting two.
Yeah.
So maybe this is where I'm at with that. And I'll go ahead and give you my final thoughts on this. I think it's very good. I think it's a crowded genre at this point, so take that into account as well, okay? But it's a good-looking package. It's fun. It's solid. I'm giving this one an 8. It's a very strong 8 because I very much recommend it. Good packaging here, by the way. The small size box for this one really works. I would think I would recommend this because of the amount of content to anyone who's got any sort of, blushing knowledge of any roll and rights or flip and rights. I would recommend this first. I would be like, just jump right into the New York and Paris one. You get twice the amount of content. They're both interesting, they're fun, engaging, all of that. If you haven't played any roll and rights, there are others that are probably a little easier. On tour is easier mechanically, but it's a bit of a brain burner. So I think if you haven't at all, I might just recommend an entirely different one. So I guess I'm saying this is my recommendation then for on tour. This is a great jumping on point for this series. I'm hoping that if they continue to come up with games in it, that they keep doing this idea. This, pick a theme, which is very well done here, and then 2 places, 2 maps, which again was not in the first one, but they could have done it, they just didn't do it. So I do like that. What do you got?
Yeah, my final thoughts, I'm coming in high, but a little bit lower than you. I'm going to come in at 7.5 on this. It's definitely one that I would recommend for people. There were a couple usability things that got in the way for me. New York specifically, I had to double check myself multiple times. Be like, wait, no, that is there. No, it's not. No, I can't do that. Like, it's just the not the iconography, maybe the color palette.
I think the cards, the way the different barrels are highlighted, like outlined. They're outlined on the cards, but they're filled in on the map.
Right.
So it took a little bit, to be, okay, yes, Manhattan, yes. If you are playing upside down or you don't know New York that well, then yeah.
Yeah, so I think that got in the way a little bit with the New York map. But that being said, I strongly prefer the New York map over Paris. But I think that they're different enough, and that's just more my play style. There's people that are going to feel the complete opposite, that they're really going to like Paris. So I think in this package, what you get, if you like roll and writes or flip and writes, you kind of have that mind for those puzzles of, hey, here's your limitations, but explore what you can do with those limitations, and open information, whoever does it best wins. If you like that kind of game, I think this is a fantastic jumping in point. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the color palette. I think it's a really well implementation of the theme in it, in kind of a themeless, not genre, but kind of games. There's very few thematic roll and writes,
No,
right?
I mean, this is a stretch by any metric. The whole walking around or visiting New York and walking around different jazz clubs or what have you, it's a stretch.
It's a stretch, but you still get that feeling just because of the way it looks. You know, I feel like while it doesn't have themes and the mechanisms, you get it based on the look and just the color palette, everything. It does really well. So I think what it was trying to do, it does very, very well, and I absolutely would recommend it within this genre, and it's one that I look forward to exploring more of. So 7.5 for me.
All right. So there we go, 7.5 and 8. That is the seal of approval, folks, for On Tour, Paris and New York. So make sure you check this one out. It's a winner. And that's going to do it for us, everybody. My name is Zee Garcia.
I'm Mila Cleghorn.
Enjoy visiting some jazz clubs.